A land of extremes, where fire and ice clash. Ancient mountains give way to lush forest. A forgotten wilderness, dazzling in its diversity. Seasons of darkness and perpetual light reveal life, thriving against all odds. Treasures revealed as never before. Of Scandinavia stretch for nearly 100,000 kilometers. Time and tide shape the land and the lives of the creatures that live here. It is a world of ceaseless change, in which animals live, literally, on the edge. From lush temperate forests in the south to the frozen Arctic north, gripped by ice for much of the year. But even here, life survives. Far off the northern coast of Norway, the Svalbard Islands are home to the mighty polar bear. Its acute sense of smell can pinpoint seals as much as a meter beneath the ice. During the worst of winter, the polar bear is in its element. Polar bears inhabit only the extreme north, but Scandinavia extends southwards to include 5 countries and a range of climates. Around a third of it lies within the Arctic Circle, and the animals that live here must endure an epic winter, up to 6 months long. While the polar bear is perfectly suited to hunting on the frozen sea, the ice deprives the sea eagles in Sweden of their usual prey. So they must turn to other sources of food. Opportunists survive by feeding on the frozen carcasses of winter's victims. The hooded crows are hungry too, but they'll have to wait their turn. It doesn't pay to be over-eager. Tugging at an eagle's tail feathers is a bad idea. In this time of scarcity, even a crow is a meal worth grabbing. The end of a long Scandinavian winter is a desperate time, but the promise of change is in the air. The sea has been frozen for 6 months, its surface as solid as the land. Now the seascape is breaking up, and for creatures accustomed to life on the ice, the world is disintegrating. polar bear has kept up with the retreating ice pack so far, but its hunting grounds are melting fast. Its favorite prey, ringed seals and bearded seals, are heading north with the ice. Soon, they will be beyond its reach. Stranded on Greenland by the retreating ice, the polar bear faces a summer of hardship and deprivation. A window of opportunity may be closing for the polar bear, but for most, spring is a time of plenty. Little orcs explode on Greenland's west coast. They have spent the winter along the edge of the pack ice in the northwest Atlantic. But in spring, some 30 million of them are drawn to Greenland's shores. That's 4/5 of all the little orcs on Earth. They come here to feed in the waters offshore and to nest on the cliffs. These little birds live truly on the edge, moving effortlessly between land, air, and sea. Little orcs form lifelong pairs. How the birds find their mates amongst the millions is a mystery. Somehow they reconnect, renewing their bond after spending winter apart. With so many pairs looking for the ideal nest site in the scree, squabbles break out. In the spring, the waters around Scandinavia are some of the richest in the world. Cold and warm currents mix. Lengthening days and the sun's warmth fuel huge blooms of plankton, feasted on by many. Animals living on Scandinavia's coastal margins march to the rhythm of the ocean. Now the sea is free of ice. The white-tailed eagle can go fishing once more. And the humpback whale has come here for the same reason as the birds, the seasonal bounty essential to survival. Humpbacks and their newborn calves have traveled from the Caribbean, a dangerous journey of 7,000 kilometers. The prospect of eating 1.5 tons of krill each day is alluring, because the mother has eaten nothing since this time last year. They'll feast all summer long, building up blubber to sustain them on the return journey south and through the winter. The ocean attracts a vast array of summer visitors. Not just auks, but millions of other seabirds come to nest on the sheer coastal cliffs. The rocky bluffs above the shores of Iceland may seem inhospitable, but to seabirds, they make ideal homes. High-rise apartment blocks, where every ledge, no matter how small, is a potential nest site. Kittiwakes and puffins are birds of the open ocean, but they come ashore to breed. The kittiwakes opt for precarious balconies, and the puffins prefer roof gardens. Puffins spend hours diving for sand eels, securing them on their serrated beaks, up to 30 at a time. It's the best food for their new chicks, hidden in the burrows. Concentrations of cliff-dwelling birdlife attract aerial predators, like the peregrine falcon, the fastest bird in the world. Lowland Denmark has only 3 or 4 pairs at present. But they thrive on the Danish island Mons Klint, where cliffs provide caves for their nests and good vantage points for hunting. Peregrines, kittiwakes, and puffins, all these creatures on the edge between land and sea. And there is even more life in the forests inland. Warm ocean currents make the climate surprisingly moderate for a region so close to the Arctic Circle. And life flourishes. Scandinavian forests boast all 4 of Europe's top carnivores. Sweden is one of the last strongholds for the rare Eurasian lynx. With tighter limits on hunting, the brown bear population has increased almost 20-fold in the last 80 years. Now around 3,000 of them roam the region. You can even find endangered wolves and the wolverine, whose powerful jaws can slice through bone. Wolverines are not related to wolves, but to badgers and sea otters. They are right at home in these northern forests, where nothing seems beyond their reach or their appetites. Curious and wily, the wolverine is always on the lookout for a tasty morsel. The coastal forests run from Denmark in the south up to the Arctic Circle, where they give way to tundra. There's another summer treat in these northern Scandinavian lands: the midnight sun. For 2 months, it skirts the horizon without setting. That's no consolation for the polar bear, still stranded in Greenland. It's likely to starve unless it can find carrion or at least berries. There's no escape from the heat and the swarms of mosquitoes. It can't even shed its winter coat. All the creatures of the far north have adapted to the prolonged daylight in the land of the midnight sun. In the forests of northern Finland, nocturnal animals have to cope with a 24-hour day shift. The flying squirrel is a rare sight. It only breeds at this time of year. In spring, this female signals she's ready to mate by marking a branch. She rubs into the bark a mixture of her own droppings chewed up with saliva. All she has to do is wait. Within minutes, a male homes in on her scent by air. Flying squirrels stretch the skin between their front and back legs to create a maneuverable wing. But another male sneaks in from below. She's worth fighting for. Falling with style, the first male lands right at the female's door. Now it's up to her to make a choice. And finally, she does. But love should not be entirely blind. They need to watch out for the normally nocturnal great grey owl. Hunting almost entirely by sound, owls eavesdrop on the scurryings in the undergrowth. Luckily for the squirrels, the owl's main prey is voles. Inland waters are also brimming with food. Kisolsayo in Finland is an ideal home for ospreys. They form partnerships that last a lifetime. This couple is returning to their nest after a winter apart in Africa. Their first task, home repairs. Natural building materials need skillful handling. Since they live up to 30 years, experience pays off. With no predators apart from humans, they can afford to nest out in the open. But the pressure's on. They have only 5 months to mate, hatch their eggs, raise their chicks, and see them fledged. The aptly named Rough displays in a lek, where a group of males come together to display for the females. Even though summer lasts a lot longer here than further north, there is a sense of urgency in the air. Scenes of territorial aggression play out across the region. Golden-eyed ducks and horned grebes battle amongst themselves for supremacy. Spring quickly gives way to summer in these northern climes. It's a brief respite from the harsh conditions of winter. For all creatures, raising a family is the highest priority. Kittiwakes lay 2 eggs on average, but only half the young will survive, fed on regurgitated fish ferried in a relay by both parents. Guillemots also nest here. They often mingle with kittiwakes in high-density breeding colonies, sometimes exceeding 100,000 pairs. Guillemots lay a single egg. Its pear shape stops it from rolling off. In just 3 weeks, the chick will leap from this ledge, joining its parents to feed at sea. Scandinavia boasts some of the largest breeding colonies of seabirds in the world. Little auks, kittiwakes and guillemots, all here to benefit from the bounty of the sea. Early summer is the best of times for most regions of Scandinavia. The Baltic Sea is no exception. Grey seals can afford to take it easy. Hunting and pollution drove them almost to extinction in the 1970s. Now completely protected, their numbers have recovered to about 20,000. They're superbly adapted to life in the water, streamlined and agile. Their whiskers are ultra-sensitive to water movement. They use them to track fish. It's the height of summer. Warm waters and plenty to eat. The osprey now has 3 hungry mouths to feed. He can't afford to miss. He can choose from a wide menu. Today, it's salmon trout. The chicks are just a few weeks old and growing fast. In another month or so, they must learn to fly. Then they'll set off alone on a 7,000-kilometer journey to Africa, their first migration. They must leave before the fish they need are locked beneath the ice. If their father doesn't provide enough food, they won't be strong enough to go the distance. He needs to catch up to 8 fish each day to support his family. It's such a short growing season that the pressure is constant for both parents. While he hunts, she feeds the chicks and guards the nest. He's perfectly equipped for the job. A third eyelid acts like built-in goggles for clear underwater vision. Speed, angle and depth are calculated instinctively. His wings stretch 1.5 meters. Ultra-flexible shoulder joints and powerful shoulder muscles complete his fishing gear. Once the ferocious talons lock onto a fish, they won't release until the osprey lands. Nearby, the wolverine has only himself to fend for. He heads back to a forest reindeer carcass he has discovered. It's attracting a lot of interest. For the tenacious and hungry wolverine, abandoning this meal is not an option. He'll need to guard the carcass well. The scent of fresh meat is a powerful draw. He could fight off these wolves, but he has a more subtle tactic to declare his ownership. He defecates on his prize. The meat is his, with a little for the raven. For the polar bear, marooned on the shores of Greenland, summer is not a time for rest or recreation. It will roam hundreds of kilometers in search of food, of which there is very little. Leftover birds' eggs are better than nothing. The raven will go hungry today. While the polar bear struggles, the walruses relax on the beach. They are true marine mammals, at home in the ocean, whatever the weather. They're taking a much-needed breather between dives. They'll do over 100 each day. Walruses have a unique technique for exposing clams. For some reason, they almost always use the right flipper to waft the sand away. Even though the walrus cannot now see its prey, it finds the clams without difficulty using sensitive whiskers. In a single day, it can vacuum up the meat of nearly 22,000 clams. That's 75 kilos. The barren shores of Greenland hold no bounty for the polar bear. It is getting desperate, close to starvation. It stumbled on a scientific expedition. The researchers have good reason to be worried. Hungry polar bears are especially dangerous. They've been known to attack and kill humans. Luckily for the scientists, it seems more interested in their bathroom area. It looks like it's done this before. Icon of the Arctic, top predator and expert hunter, reduced to squeezing toothpaste. Even more than for most animals, timing is crucial for polar bears. Missing the ice train north back in March was a serious mistake. Stranded on land, its hunting grounds are far out of reach. Only the return of the ice will save it. Summer has reached its peak, and for Scandinavia's migrant visitors, time is running out. In Iceland, the cliffs still echo to the calls of the seabirds. But the puffin chicks have now fledged, along with the guillemots and kittiwakes. This is a new beginning for them. At the end of the summer, the young puffins will leave these fishing grounds, but they'll return in 4 or 5 years to raise their own families. Inland, other youngsters are venturing from the safety of their nests. The flying squirrel's baby is undertaking its first tentative forays. Once it makes sure the coast is clear. The 3 osprey chicks are 7 weeks old and ready to fly the nest. This is their final meal delivery. Their mother will leave now and their father will follow in a few weeks. Then the chicks will be entirely on their own. They compete for every morsel. The flying squirrel is still finding its feet. But the ospreys have already found their wings. They are flexing the muscles that will carry them on their marathon flight to West Africa. These pre-flight checks are vital for a successful takeoff. Both osprey and squirrel are entering an unknown world. The young squirrel is still very wary. But the ospreys are poised to take their maiden flights. We have liftoff. The pioneer's success encourages the others. Even with plenty of practice, they may not make it. Just 1 in 10 osprey chicks survives the journey. The days grow shorter, and the warmth leaves the sun. Autumn colors the land. This is a crucial turning point in the far north. With winter fast approaching, the animals here will either remain and try to survive the cold, or migrate and escape the worst. All along the coasts of Scandinavia, the winds are growing cooler and stronger, exerting their pull on the land. Altering its very shape. As the land cools more quickly than the ocean, fogs form, signaling the onset of winter. change of seasons also cues the start of migrations. In Denmark, these starlings are on their way south to Britain. When startled by birds of prey, the entire flock erupts, moving as one. Each starling tries to stay close to its neighbors and mimic their moves. The resulting black swarm confuses predators. Birds at the edge of the swarm are most vulnerable, so they constantly swap places to limit their exposure. The starling migration is just one part of a mass exodus of animals heading south to avoid another ferocious winter. Animals that stay must be ready. Only the toughest will survive the next 6 months. The brown bear will remain, but he'll hibernate, opting out by sleeping in. The polar bear takes the opposite approach. Winter is its time. It's endured the heat and trials of summer, and if it can last through the brief Scandinavian autumn, it might survive. At this time of year, every scrap of fresh food is guarded jealously and fought over. Wolves, ravens, and wolverines keep a wary eye on each other. The ravens follow the hunters, making them less likely to starve, as long as the predators can find prey. The nights draw in. In the far north, the sun will not climb over the horizon for around 3 months. Its twilight is pierced only by the spectacle of the northern lights. Sun-kissed beaches are ice-blasted and exposed right through winter. For grey seals in the Baltic Sea, that's no problem. This is when female seals give birth. But the huge males are here too, with one thing on their minds: mating. The mothers need to nurture and protect their babies, but they also need to mate. The huge marauding males weigh up to 300 kilos, and the infants can be crushed if they get in the way. Mating preoccupies both sexes. And males battle for access to the best females. They can cause terrible injuries with their formidable canines. To each other, and sometimes to the pups. There are often casualties. or even fatalities. But the death of a seal pup can be a lifeline for others. Scavenging is the sea eagle's lot during the big freeze. With the ice now forming offshore, winter penetrates the land too. The predators of the north must seize every opportunity at this time of year. The wolverines are well equipped. Those powerful jaws mean eating food direct from the freezer is no problem. Their shaggy paws and sharp claws are natural snowshoes. These two are in the mood for play. Wolverines range across large territories. They regularly patrol the perimeter. Ravens watch their every move, knowing they have hidden caches of food. The wolverine's scent marking doesn't deter them one bit. They're far too smart for that. Both will have to live on their wits in the months to come. Farther north, battered by frigid Arctic winds, the coastlines are now hemmed in by ice and snow. They'll stay that way for many months. Only the hardiest animals will survive the extreme conditions. The lynx is one of them. It uses acute hearing and a keen sense of smell to pinpoint its prey. Lynx are one of the few animals who don't lose the trail under snow. There is nowhere to hide. The ice pack continues its advance, finally reaching the shore. For the polar bear, the good times have returned. It is in its element again. And ringed seals are back on the menu. Once more, the ice bear reigns supreme, until the ocean melts again. The Scandinavian coast is an ever-shifting world. The ocean shapes the land and the destinies of all the animals that live here. Where the land meets the sea,